he made some mistakes, I guess. At least he's saying he didn't in the actual exam, but that's where he was losing marks in the mocks. But speaking, writing, he did well. That's where you usually lose scores because of spelling errors and intonations in speaking and everything. We'll discuss that today, don't worry.
Ma'am, have anyone scored the perfect marks like 120 or 120?
There have been people, 120 on 120, I'm not really sure. If earlier anyone must have scored, I'm not really sure. But in recent, I would say, like not from my institute, of course, but there are some people on YouTube that I have checked out. One guy has, I will share his video also. He has shared his uh, experience and his tips and tricks, where he has scored 119 out of 120, and then there are other people also who have scored 118, 115 out of 120. It is not very difficult to score high in TOEFL because that's what we are going to look at today, so don't worry about that. Because TOEFL is not very strict about all the human errors that we do. Okay, so when we go through sample responses also, that's when you will understand. When we do mocks and when you go through the sample responses, that should give you an idea of how, I wouldn't say lenient, but that's what makes it easy. Okay, even in writing, if you're making very simple mistakes, like say one or two grammatical error or one or two spelling errors, then that is disregarded because it is not hampering the whole conversation. And at the end, we are all humans, correct? Not everyone is good with spellings, and sometimes even like native speakers can make mistakes in grammar while speaking as well as writing, correct? So about these things, TOEFL is a bit lenient. Okay, so that's what helps to get a perfect score, I would say. Whereas some of the other examinations which exist, even for minor spelling errors, even for minor singular का plural भी गलती से कर दिया तो you lose marks over there, even for fill in the blanks. So that's what makes it hard. Even if you have written everything correctly, but if you have written in plural form instead of singular form, then you lose marks. If you have written incorrect spelling, then you lose marks, even if you have written the answer correctly. So that's what makes it hard to score in those exams. Okay. It's not difficult, I would say, but I would say it depends on the test day, how conscious and how mindful you are. Okay. If you, like, all the things that I tell you before the examinations, if you make sure that you use them, yep, you will get a good score. 25 above तो बहुत easily आ जाएगा. If your English is good, of course, that's a condition that you need. If you work on your English, if your English is poor, then it becomes a little difficult with all the tips and tricks also, because here you need the grasp of the language. And that is not for TOEFL, it's for all the examinations, because they are expecting you to be good with English. Correct? That's the reason. So I wouldn't say you need Sashi Tharoor level of English, but you need good command over the language. That's what is expected. Okay. ठीक है, मतलब कि कोई ग्रामेटिकल एरर्स नहीं होने चाहिए, लैंग्वेज हमारी जैसे हम नॉर्मल डेली लाइफ में यूज करते हैं वैसी होनी चाहिए. सामने वाले, first thing is of course it should make sense and the other person should understand what you're trying to say. Understood? Yes. That's what is expected. Nothing much. Okay. Let's go through the speaking section quickly then today. Now we already know the speaking section has 4 tasks. Correct? We know that or we don't know that? Yes, right? Okay. Your speaking section has 4 tasks. Okay. Now, what the tasks demand and what is the requirement for each of them. That's what we are going to look at again, and how to answer each of them also. That's what we are going to look at. The whole section is of 16 minutes. We already know that. Correct? Now, for most of the questions you will get some time for preparation. I have already told you guys that for this examination we guys, turn on your cameras. For this examination we have to record our responses, correct, and submit. It is on the computer. There will not be any live examiner as such. Now you would ask me, does live examiner, like a live examiner being there, helps or does not help? It is, I would say, of course many people have many opinions about this, but I'm going to tell you my viewpoint. Of course it will depend on you also what you prefer, but here we don't have preference, won't work, but still, just to add to it, it totally depends. If you ask me, I can't talk to a computer. I will not be able to record a response if you ask me to talk to a computer. Of course, if it's an examination, I can try, but otherwise, I cannot talk to the computer. That is the whole reason I ask you guys to keep the camera on. So I know that, okay, I'm talking to humans, I'm not talking to my computer. Okay, if your cameras are off, I feel, okay, I'm talking to my computer, and I can't do that. And that is why you might see I don't have recorded lectures anywhere. I can't do that. I tried, but it's little hard. Okay, that's where I ask someone to sit in front of me and then I record it. So it helps sometimes. When you don't have anyone in front of you, you can't come up with points. That's what I feel at least. But yes, for examination, we can still make do with it. Now, some people have an opinion that when there is a live examiner, these live examiners can have their own opinions, their own biases, and because of that, you get low score. That is not the truth. I am a speaking examiner for Cambridge, so I know when the examiners are trained, we are asked to keep our biases aside. We are asked to keep our personal things aside. मैंने अगर खाना नहीं खाया है वो मेरा लुकआउट है. मेरे पति के साथ में अगर मेरा I don't have my husband, but अगर मेरा किसी के साथ में झगड़ा हुआ है, so that is my lookout. Because of that, I cannot give a low score to a student. ठीक है, so all the personal biases don't come into the picture because that is how we are trained. Okay, just because I'm not in a good mood or just because I'm exhausted उस वजह से आपको low score मिलना, it is just a reason, I would say. Now what I feel, the students usually lose marks is because of the examiners facial expressions and gestures. Now, we as humans, now even when I am talking, you guys are giving me a nod, you guys are smiling, you guys are giving me facial expressions, correct? In between, you guys are even answering yes, no, karke. We, whenever as humans talk, we want that acknowledgement, correct? We want that gesture. Even a simple nod would do, would also do. But when we go for examination as an examiner, we are not allowed to do that. हमें वहां पर straight face लेके बैठना होता है as an examiner. And this is common for all the examinations. Of course, IELTS has more rules than what examination I go for. Now, over there, they are asked not to give any facial expressions, not to give any acknowledgement whether you are answering right or wrong. Now, when you don't get any acknowledgement from the other person, you tend to feel that okay, मैं कुछ तो गलत आंसर कर रहा हूँ, मैं कुछ तो गलत बोल रहा हूँ. Okay, the other person did not, the examiner did not like my response maybe. ऐसे हमें लगने लग जाता है. Of course, when I say this, it doesn't happen consciously. It happens very subconsciously. And because of that, even if we are good with English, even if our language skills are good, even if we are like the best communicators, we will still fumble over there because of all the cues that we need while conversing with someone. So because of that, sometimes it could hamper your scores. Now that's what doesn't happen over here. Here you have a computer, you have to speak to the computer directly. So that's why I said it totally depends on your personal preference, what you prefer. Okay. Now over here, as I told you, you will get some time. You will have to record the response. The recording of response will start automatically. You don't have to do anything over there. Okay, it will just show you on the screen. You just have to pay attention to the screen. That's what you have to make sure about. Okay. Now, for some questions, you will get 45 seconds to prepare. For some questions, you will get 60, sorry, my bad. For some questions, you will get 45 seconds and 60 seconds to respond. And for some questions, you will get 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and 30 seconds to prepare according to the question type. Now, we are going to go through the question types, each one of them. Okay. Now, whenever you are assessed in speaking, you are assessed on three parameters: your delivery, okay, how clear your speech is, how your responses are fluid and clear with correct, I wouldn't say good pronunciations, but clear pronunciations, natural original English pronunciations that we have. Along with that, natural pacing. What do I mean by natural pacing? You're not speaking very slow, you're not speaking very fast also. Just because you have only 45 seconds or 60 seconds to respond, that does not mean that you speak very fast. Okay? You have to speak in normal pace, the way you speak normally. Okay? Of course, there are some tools that we can use to find out how many words we speak in a minute, but that is something that we can do later, not right now as such. Okay, that's something that we do when we do mocks and practice. So don't worry about it. Now, yes, along with that, it is very, very important that you sound natural with natural intonations and patterns. Now, when we talk about intonations and patterns, we will do that once we have, everyone in the class as well, how your intonations, how your patterns should be while you're speaking, and they should be natural. Now, just because you are asked to speak in a natural and a fluent way, ऐसा नहीं है कि we go ahead and sing a song over there. ठीक है, हमें गाना नहीं गाना है, नॉर्मली जैसे बात करते हैं वैसे ही बात करना है. At the same time, it does not mean that we speak very loudly because we are speaking to a microphone. It's not necessary. Even I speak normally, I will still be audible because that's how high quality mics are given over there in the test. Okay. Then comes your language use. Language use, here we talk about vocabulary, here we talk about grammar. Your grammar should be good. I'm not saying it should be super excellent. I'm just saying it should be good. There should be no grammatical errors. There should be, if you're using words, you should use them in correct form at the correct place with correct tenses. So here the tenses become very, very important. Of course, we are going to go through tenses also. Do not worry about that. Your tenses become very important. Your subject verb agreement becomes very important. Your articles become very important. This goes in writing as well as speaking. The grammar topics, they go both the ways. Okay, along with that, here you are judged based on your ability to control both basic and complex sentence structures and the appropriate use of vocabulary. Now, when I say vocabulary, as I said, you don't need Sashi Tharoor level of vocabulary, but it is preferred if you use good vocabulary. Instead of saying easy, I could use the word efficient. Okay, so that's what makes it a better vocabulary. Of course, even if you say the word easy, you are going to get scored. But if you say efficient, you might score better. Okay. Now, along with that, topic development. Now, topic development is a very, very, very important thing because whenever we are explaining something, it should have a proper explanation. Correct? There should be an introduction. There should be the middle part where I give supporting ideas along with main details, and then there should be a conclusion. Now you might say कि 60 seconds and 45 seconds में भी ये सब कुछ करना है. Yes, करना है. That's what you're scored for. Okay, how well you start off, how well you can give your response, and how well you can conclude it. Okay, now along with that, your connectors become very important over here. Connectors to add furthermore, however, in addition, जो हमने कल words लिखे थे ना class में, which I told you, write these down. So all those words become very important. These are your connectors or transition words, we call them. In conclusion, to summarize, all these words, they help you score. Okay. Now that is a brief about all of the tasks. Now looking at individual tasks. First one is the independent task. Independent task, here you do not get any listening or like listening audio or reading passage as such. You have to answer directly, but here the question which will be asked is very easy. It is from something that will be from your life as a student. Okay, for example, the question could be something like, let me show you this. Some students study for classes individually, others study in groups. Which method of studying do you think is better for students and why? Okay, so mostly they ask about you as a student. Sometimes they ask you your preferred choice, or they might ask you something generally, but again, it comes down to your choice only. Understood? So here our comparative degree. Pranjali, if you remember, we discussed comparative degree becomes very, very important, and the way we discuss it. For example, which method of studying do you think is better for students? I think studying individually is better for students, and then I will go and give my explanation. Now, as this question is asking you for personal preference, of course, you will start with words like I think, I prefer. Do you think hai? So of course, I will start with I think. If the question changes, that's how my response will change. I believe, I prefer. That is how we will start the question. Now, in speaking, one more thing that becomes important is to know our starters. What I'm going to start my response with. Because गाड़ी जब तक हमारी चालू नहीं होती ना तब देर लगती है, गाड़ी एक बार चालू हो गई तो स्मूथली चलती है ना. Same way in speaking also, whenever like even when we do practice, you will observe that it is difficult to start. Once we start, we can keep on going. Correct? So that is the reason we should know the starters that I will start with. Then it's easier to continue because you get only 45 seconds for this question, and even if you waste 1 or 2 seconds, that means you have less time to give the response and conclude everything at the end. That's why we should start immediately as soon as the microphone opens up. Okay, here this is what the screen would look like. You will get 50 seconds preparation time, and you will have 45 seconds to respond to this question. Now you might say, is 45 seconds enough? Yes, they are more than enough. Okay, that's about the first one. First question. Of course, you cannot memorize the responses. You will get a lot of cues. You will get a lot of questions which you can go through even on your test ready platform. But still, you cannot by heart any kind of response as such. I would instead say, know the transition words, know the connectors, know how your phrases or sentences should look like. That's what becomes helpful. Okay. Now you might say there are many templates on Google and YouTube which are available. Are they helpful? Not really. As I said, know your transition words, know how your sentences should sound, know how your words should be, like कैसे wordings हमें use करने वो पता करो. But you can't use exact templates because your TOEFL responses are assessed by AI plus humans. Now, when we talk about AI has or knows when we use a template, because समझो प्रांजलि का भी रिस्पॉन्स सेम है, हमजा का भी रिस्पॉन्स सेम है, एस्तर का भी रिस्पॉन्स सेम है, अपूर्वा का भी रिस्पॉन्स सेम है. सो दैट मीन्स समथिंग इज रॉन्ग. करेक्ट? जैसे हम असाइनमेंट्स कॉपी करते थे कॉलेज में, टीचर को समझता था राइट कि ये एक ग्रुप के और इनके असाइनमेंट सेम दिख रहे हैं. सेम वे एआई आल्सो अंडरस्टैंड्स दैट ओके these responses look same. When the responses look same, only with some keywords here and there, they understand that okay, this is a copy paste template and you do not get assist. Okay, and this has come as a recent change. Many people were using templates before even after saying no, but if you use templates you might lose marks. Like जो खुद के skills use करके थोड़े बहुत भी आते थे ना वो भी चले जाएंगे. ठीक है? That is why templates in speaking as well as in writing do not help as such. Know how your responses should be. That's what becomes helpful. Okay, know your transition words, know your connectors, know how you can go from one point to another point. Yeah, and what are the wordings you can use. That's what becomes helpful. Now next one is integrated tasks. Of course, we know what are integrated tasks. Here the tasks are integrated. We are not purely doing speaking. Here we will get a reading passage also, and we will get to listen to an audio also. We have to answer based on the same. We don't have to come up with anything on our own. That's what makes it easier. That's what I feel. Now, the second task is always a conversation based on a notification that the college has put up. Okay, a college will put up, like you will get a reading passage that the university has put up some kind of notification. For example, you have one notification over here which talks about revision in the fee structure, correct, which is given by the university president. Now, based on this, two students will be conversing with each other. Now, usually it has been a trend, but yes, usually, not most of the times, but always नहीं बोल सकते यहाँ पर, ठीक है? Usually and most of the times, one of them will have a very strong opinions about the notification. Okay, and as I said, most of the times the question that you will get will be on the same. The woman expresses her opinion of the announcement by the university president, state her opinion, and explain the reason she gives for holding that opinion. So she has very strong opinions about this notification. So you have to make sure that you note. Of course, other student का भी आप note down करोगे. कभी by chance दूसरा भी पूछ सकते हैं. But this has been a trend. Most of the times you are asked about the student who has the strong opinion, and most of the times that student is a female student. Okay, that is also like a trend. But yes, sometimes it can vary. But that's what you need to observe over here and pay attention to. Now, quickly read the notification and then read the conversation. I will show you. Just tell me once you're done reading the notification. Done?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, this is the conversation. You, of course, in the examination, you will hear this conversation. But for now, just read it quickly.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we do not have an audio for this. Done? Pretty
Done.
easy, right? Now, once you are done listening to the audio, this is what it will show you. You will get 30 seconds to synthesize all the information, put them into your own words. Of course, remember that whenever we give a response, we have to make sure we do not use the same sentences and same wordings. We have to paraphrase, rephrase, and give the response and put them in our own words. Okay. Now, here your response will start something like: the woman expresses her opinion about the announcement. She gives her opinion by stating all the reasons that she has stated and the opinions that she has stated. Hence, the woman has very strong opinion about or hence the woman disapproves the revision in the fee structure. ऐसे करके you will conclude. One sentence introduction, one sentence conclusion. Main points बीच में आएंगे. Clear?
Ma'am, one doubt I have. While starting the paragraph, the paragraph which will speak, so will we mention the above notice things, or we will directly come to the topic that the woman, what is the woman's opinion and why the woman opinion?
You will include the information from both of them. Okay, not only from one of them. You will include the information from both of them. Reading का भी करोगे passage में से and audio का भी करोगे. But yes, the question will mostly be from the audio. But they are discussing about the notification in that, the reading passage in that. Okay. So you will need to mention both of them, I would say. Your answer would look something like: the reading passage announces a change on campus or proposes a change in the fees, something like that. In particular, you will go ahead and say they're explaining the revision in the fees. Okay. Then to start, the woman expresses her opinion and then you will give the opinion. Secondly, thirdly, ये सारे important words हो जाते हैं. He or she explains that. And at the end, you will conclude it by saying, as we can observe or as we can see, the woman in the audio clearly disagrees with this revision in the fee structure. Whatever the reading passage will be. Okay? That is how it will be. Clear? Now, for homework, you guys are going to record the responses for this. I'm going to send it to me. You can send it to me on the WhatsApp group directly. Now, over here, it is also very, very important that you note the attitude of the main speaker. Okay, how will you note the opinion of the main speaker? By listening to her intonations, by listening to her stress, by listening to her word choices. Usually we understand by the word choices and intonations that now he or she is kind of pissed about it. And that's how you will gauge that okay, he or she has a strong opinion about it. That's what we have to gauge, and that's how we have to take notes also while listening. Okay. Then third one that we have is the general or specific task, which is of course your reading passage, which is academic level passage, and then a lecture based on it. Okay. Now for this, of course, while doing the practice, you can find the listening and reading material on a topic that you like. The reading material can be from different or same point of view. You can take notes, listen to it, create outlines, and prepare a response for the same. Okay. Now, when we talk about this task, this and writing task 1 are kind of similar. Only our responses vary. Here we are giving a spoken response. Over there we are giving a writing response. We get a passage, okay, and we get a listening audio, which is a lecture basically on the same topic which has been given in the reading passage. Now, if you guys have ever observed when you were in university, of course we had textbooks, of course we had notes that our professors used to give us. But means what I'm trying to say over here is there are theories, right? And there are a lot of hypotheses based on that. There are a lot of texts based on the same. But whenever our professors teach the same, they will input their own opinions in that. Correct? Most of the times, these opinions that they have will be opposing to whatever is given in the reading passage. For example, most of us have gone through Darwin's evolution theory, correct? Whatever he has explained about the same. So स्कूल में या फिर कॉलेज में इमेजिन करो कि हम वो पढ़ते थे पहले, बराबर? ऑफ कोर्स हम कभी पढ़ते नहीं है स्कूल एंड कॉलेज के पहले, लेक्चर के पहले, बट इमेजिन कर लो कि you are a good student and you have read the passage before going for the lecture. Now, of course, you know what is given in the reading passage, but whenever your professor explains, he will explain whatever is given in the passage. But he will input his own opinions also, and he will say, क्योंकि डार्विन ने ये बताया है, but proofs कहाँ है? डार्विन ने ये बताया है, but this opposes whatever he has given in the reading passage. Correct? So they will have their own theories and own opinions about it, and they will have opposing ideas about the same. Now, this is what you will get in your task number 3 and task number 1 in writing. Okay? Reading passage will talk about the same thing. It will give you some examples, it will give you some solutions or maybe a problem, and then the lecturer will give you solutions to it, which will be kind of opposing to whatever we read in the passage. Now again, when we talk about this question, we have to synthesize both the information. We have to mention some points from the reading passage also, and we have to mention some points from the listening audio also. Okay, that's what we have to do. Say example, this is what your reading passage talks about. And then your professor, of course, a picture will come up on the screen, and your professor starts speaking about the same thing. And this is what the question would look like. The professor describes the behavior of horses and antelope in herds. Explain how their behavior is related to their sustainability for domestication. That is what the question will be for this particular passage and audio. Okay, the question will of course change according to the audio. Clear? Okay, now read it quickly. Okay, and this is what the lecture will be like. Now read it quickly. Now this first line becomes important for us because that becomes the topic, and of course when we start our response, we will start with the introduction of the topic. As I said in the listening also, whenever the professor is giving too many examples, explaining a lot of things, process, we make sure that we make notes of it. Okay,
Yes.
it goes until here. Finish it. Clear?
Yes.
Okay, great. Of course, you know the question. Here you will get 30 seconds to prepare and 60 seconds to give the response. Now, again, for homework, you're going to record the response and send it to me for all the tasks basically which are given in your TOEFL guide. Okay. Now, next over here, the last one that you have is the summary question. But before we go to summary question, what would your answer look like for question number 3? Just giving you a brief of it. According to the reading, you will mention the topic and you will mention the definition of it, which is given from the lecture. Of course, you will need to use similar wordings to the way they have been used in the lecture in the first sentence. In the lecture, the professor delves deeper into the subject by providing an example of, and you will go on and explain the topic again. Over here, you will expand more on it. Then you will transition to the first example. You will expand on the first example which has been given. Then you will go ahead and give the second example. To start the lecture, the lecturer explains. You will say the lecturer or the speaker. The wordings that you will use are the lecturer, the professor, or the speaker. These three words are helpful for us. Any other words are not good, I would say. Okay. Here you will not say the man or the woman. Here you will say the lecturer. Yeah. Now, then again, you will expand. Here you can use he, she. She goes on to say, and you will give the second example that he is explaining. And so, after listening, now I now have a better understanding of what the topic is. That's something that you can say, or you can just conclude it by saying, this is what the professor thinks, or this is what the professor feels. These are the examples that he gave. So, you will give a short response as a conclusion to it. Okay, at the end. Understood? Last one is similar, but here you do not have a reading passage. You only have to listen to a lecture. And of course, in this question, most of the times you have been asked to give the examples that the professor is providing here. Okay, so you will need to make sure that you note down all the examples that the professor is giving, because your question always looks similar to this. Using points and examples from the talk, explain how the automobile and the radio contributed to a common culture in the United States. Of course, you already have the topic over here. It makes it easier to give the topic sentence at the start. Correct? You just need to note down the examples while listening to the lecture. This is where your lecture starts from. Read it quickly. Clear? Yes. Okay. Okay. Of course, your response would start something like the professor goes into ton of details about, and you will give the topic, then you will give the definition, you will introduce the topic, you will elaborate on the topic in the first line itself. Then you will give the first example and you will give details about the example. After introducing the topic, the lecturer mentions that and you will give the examples that the professor has given. Then you will introduce the second example and you will give details about it. He or she goes on to say, and then you will add the detail which is required, and you will wrap it up with a conclusion by saying, so after hearing this lecture, I now have a better understanding, or the professor clearly has opinion about, then you can explain that opinion, or whatever the professor is saying, basically based on that you can conclude it. Clear? That's how your response will be. Of course, you will get 20 seconds to prepare over here and 60 seconds to record the response. Okay, that's how long your response should be. You will not use the keywords directly. You will use the keywords directly, but other things you will not use as it is. You will try to rephrase and paraphrase in your own words. Another thing that you need to keep in mind over here is that whenever you're giving response in your speaking as well as writing task, you have to make sure that you use only simple present tense. You do not need any other tense when you are writing your response. I know you have listened to the audio before. Whatever professor has said, he has said it before sometimes. Whatever you're reading, you have read it before sometime. But still, you will use simple present tense. The professor says, the professor has a strong opinion about, the professor explains, the professor goes on to add. That's how you will explain. Don't worry, I'm going to cover the simple present tense for you. So you will get to know the rules over there. But for now, I'm just giving you the phrases, what they would look like. You will not use past tense anywhere. And another thing, if we tend to use any other tenses, sometimes we become inconsistent with our tenses. से बीच में हमने कहीं पर सिंपल प्रेजेंट यूज कर दिया, कहीं पर हमने आईएनजी यूज कर दिया विच इज आवर प्रेजेंट कंटिन्यूअस टेंस, फिर बीच में कहीं पर हमने पास्ट टेंस यूज कर दिया, फिर बीच में कहीं पर हमने प्रेजेंट परफेक्ट यूज कर दिया, तो वो आंसर वहां पर थोड़ा सा गलत हो जाता है हमारा, थोड़ा सा नहीं पूरा ही गलत हो जाता है. Whenever we are talking or narrating something, we have to be consistent with the tense. It should be in one tense. ज्यादा से ज्यादा हम दो टेंसेस यूज कर सकते हैं which usually go together, but we can't be inconsistent with the tenses. Okay. Now, in the first response, that is your speaking task 1, somewhere in between, you can use simple past tense. Because in the first task, you will need to include some examples from your life. For example, the question was, do you prefer studying individually or in a group? So you might just go ahead and say, okay, I prefer studying in a group. Last week, me and my friends, we went to a cafe to study, or we were in a library and we were studying. I could not understand a topic, so my friend, he pitched in and he started explaining to me because he was clear with that topic. ऐसे करके थोड़ा सा past tense में हम बता सकते हैं वो वहाँ पर, but only in task 1 and only if it is necessary. Necessary होगा ही because एक आध example वहाँ पर आपको include करना ही है. So make sure that's where you use past tense, that also simple past tense और कोई नहीं. ठीक है? Okay. That's what you will try to do. Otherwise, for task 2, task 3, task 4, simple present tense. Clear? Yes. Okay. Great. And we are done with the speaking task discussion also. Just for homework, go through the chapter, go through the unit, get thorough with it, read everything from word to word, and look at the rubrics also. What are they expecting in this? Look at the rubrics. You will get an idea of what they are expecting. Okay? This is for your task number 1, and this is for your task number 2, 3, and 4. You will see even in the high scorers,